All right, so you might have heard that eggs will go up in price. The question is, should you be eating eggs? And are eggs bad for prostate cancer and overall longevity? In other words, do people die more frequently or at a younger age when consuming eggs? That is a conversation that we're going to have. By the way, it's just you and I today. So there will be no guests. It's just me discussing with you the whole conversation around eggs. Should you eat eggs? If so, how much? The difference between caged eggs and free roaming and pasture-raised, and is it worth it to eat it at all? This conversation is with you, my audience, my amazing audience. So let's get started. Let's go. Before I proceed, I just want to clarify that this podcast and all Dr. Geo content is separate from my faculty position at NYU Langone Health. The views and opinions on this podcast are my own. Our guests and sponsors are curated by me and not affiliated with NYU Langone Health. Sponsors are a way for us to provide high quality information at no cost to you so that you can take better charge of your prostate health, testosterone, and erectile function, and also how to live better with age. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Dr. Geo Prostate Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Geo, where it is my intention to provide you with enough information for you to get empowered about your prostate health, including, of course, prostate cancer. And hopefully we can all live better as we get older, better with age. Today's conversation is just you and I. We're going to talk about eggs. And the reason for that is, well, I haven't done a podcast on my own in quite a while. And, I have so many thoughts that I want to share with you, including summaries of many of the podcasts that we've had. So I think that we're going to have more shows, more episodes with me getting on the mic and just talking about things that can help you and empower you and help you optimize your prostate health and your overall health. So if that's a good idea to you, let me know in the comment section. I wrote a newsletter a few days ago because the price of eggs is rising, right? So it prompted me to go ahead and talk about, in that newsletter, which is drgeo.com, by the way, highlight the association between egg consumption and prostate cancer. And I got a lot of feedback from members of that newsletter. One, and it varied from, under no circumstances are eggs good for you, because my newsletter was more about, here's what the evidence shows, which we're going to talk about in a second. And towards the end, I'm saying, look, I think the bigger deal is that we just eat too much, and we eat too much of everything, and perhaps we eat too much eggs and just overall food. And eggs are not inherently bad. It depends on multiple factors. And some of the feedback I got went from eggs are horrible for you. Look at this website, having links to all sorts of different, and others saying, well, eggs are an essential protein that have all the right amino acids, like nutrient dense food, and is absolutely, an important food to eat. There's no good evidence, human evidence, that eggs are, websites including nutritionfacts.org, inherently bad for you, and everything else in between. So I've been doing diet work and diet research and nutrition and have done many diets. I used to be vegan 30 years ago, raw food, went on to do Atkins. So that's the polar opposite. I've done paleo, I've done blood type diet, many diets. And so that, combined with my clinical experience of seeing thousands of patients that I've seen with the different dietary approaches that I've advised within the last 20, 25 years, combined with the research, combined with all the books I've read from way back. I remember the first book was Fit for Life. The book was published in the late 70s. I probably read it in the mid 90s. To, the Zone Diet, Atkins, diet, all these diets, paleo and blood type. I read the books. And again, a lot of scientific reference, a lot of scientific readings and research on diet as it relates to health, and of course, as it relates to prostate cancer. This is what I do. So with that, I want to share with you some thoughts that I have that I think will be valuable to you and hopefully actionable for you. Number one, inherently, there is no one food that either causes a disease, including prostate cancer, or cures a disease, right? So there is no such thing as a superfood. You just eat this food and, you're going to cure cancer. Or if you eat any food, including eggs, that it will cause cancer or other diseases. It's not that simple. And on this podcast, we're not going to cite much research. If you want that information, you can email us at drgeo@drgeo.com. If you want, there are healthcare practitioners that listen to this podcast. There's scientists, there's lay people, and for most people that listen to us, at least that's what you've told us. Say, hey man, just tell me what to do. I don't want to hear the whole science, and just tell me what to do. However, there are those that are interested into why are you suggesting this, and where's the evidence for that, and I'm all in on that. We could discuss. But if you want that information, just email us at drgeo.com. And again, a lot of the newsletters that gain a lot of traction, you would have to submit your email. And if you're a healthcare practitioner, you can submit your email on the homepage at drgeo.com. Or if you're a self-health advocate, you can also submit your name in a different section, because our newsletter emails are a little bit different and catered to the different groups. All right, let's get back to it. Eggs. There's no one food, right, that causes disease. The accumulation, and this is based on, I have a lot of references here, the accumulation of excess eating, of eating too many eggs or what have you, might be more of an issue than just eggs by itself. When scientists publish research around food, it's tricky because the research is typically around observation, or they follow a large group of people for X amount of years, and they send questionnaires, food frequency questionnaires. And they're asking people, hey, can you fill this out? Just, do you remember, how many eggs do you eat per week? And that's kind of tough because most people don't remember what they ate for breakfast the day before, nonetheless, within the last 2 years. So the methodology in most observational research is, I'm not going to say flawed, but certainly not showing causation or cause and effect. Now, I will say this, and this is a controversial point as well, like anything in nutrition science. I mean, you guys have noticed by now that diet is like religion. You either part of the paleo group, or you're the carnivore group, or you're the plant-based group, and it's like almost like fights and wars between all of them. And I think that that's not the way to go. I think that we can grab from each form of diet and eat better, but we'll get to that in a second. The research is very difficult. I do think that observational research done right can suggest patterns. Okay. It can suggest patterns. It's not the end all be all in terms of, hey, don't eat that food based on research. It's not that simple. No, that food will cause prostate cancer. It's not that simple. It does suggest causation, right? Or suggest there's a pattern here. This is a guideline. So that's the way I see it as it relates to observational research in nutrition and nutrition science. So as it relates with egg consumption, there is an association with eating eggs, and prostate cancer and advanced prostate cancer. And there's a minimal dose, if you will, that seems to be linked to causing not only prostate cancer. There's a study in 2024 with regards to mortality, overall mortality and egg consumption. And then again, the more eggs you eat per day, the higher the mortality risk. Okay. Ironically, the cancer rates were not that high. It was more related to things like strokes and heart attacks, if I remember correctly. Once again, you want that research, drgeo.com. This is not about that. It's about practical points based on research that you can utilize every day. So most of the research suggests that more than one egg a day can lead to prostate cancer or any other cause of mortality. More than one egg a day. The association and the reason for that might be that eggs are high in two actually very important nutrients, but maybe when overconsumed, can signal prostate cancer or other types of cancers. And those two nutrients are methionine, which is an amino acid, right? And choline, a nutrient. Both essential and very important for performance and health and longevity and brain power and all these things. But they do suggest in multiple studies that methionine, an amino acid, and choline is associated with mortality and prostate cancer. The food that I found that are the highest in both methionine and choline is eggs, or are eggs. I'm at risk of being repetitive here, but I think it's important to highlight certain points. Methionine and choline and amino acids, and certainly the essential amino acids, are important for health and longevity. I know there's a lot of research around proteins and amino acids that are bad for cancer, bad for prostate cancer. Maybe yes and no. It depends. It depends. Depends on many things. It depends on how often you eat. It depends on how much of it you eat. It depends on whether you move your body and exercise or not, and what level of intensity and how often you move your body with intensity. Because the food you eat does something different to the guy that's, sitting in a sofa all day or sitting behind a desk all day and doesn't move much, in comparison to the guy that, exercises and moves his body a lot. So a lot of the responses as it relates to food, whether it's methionine or any other amino acid or any other nutrient, depends on how often you move and with what level of intensity. Okay? So you sort of can't throw the baby out with the bathwater here, right? So the first point is that eggs, just regular eggs, I would not eat if I were you. If you're going to eat eggs, now, are eggs essential? It depends. But if you're going to eat regular eggs from the store, I would not eat more than one egg a week. One egg a day. Oh, Dr. Geo, thank you so much. That's great. So does that mean that, I won't eat any eggs for 6 days, and then I'm just going to eat 7 eggs on Sundays? Can I do? You can't make up your own stories here. All right. I would not eat 7 eggs in one day. I would not do that. But, I would eat I would refine the 1 egg a day to eating no more than 2 to 3 eggs a week. And that's one way to play it safe. That's if you like eggs, if, Saturday mornings, you like going to a diner or something with family. And you know what? This is my F-it day. I call it F-it days, the days that you do whatever you want dietarily, no restrictions, right? So on your F-it day, you just eat eggs or, 2 to 3 eggs, whatever, on one day. You could do that. Or one egg a day if you have to eat eggs. Why should I eat eggs? I don't know. It depends. One reason is because you like eggs. The other reason is because it does have a lot of good amino acids, essential amino acids in the protein. When we talk about protein, we're not just talking about protein. Protein is a vehicle that carries amino acids, and that's what you utilize for health and muscle development and muscle growth, which you need. So if you're in a situation where, look, there's not a lot of other options to get all the right amino acids, then you have eggs, and you have 1 egg a day or so. So it depends on your situation. I know. I'm gonna get some heat from someone, maybe from the vegan person. Say, well, you can eat a plant-based food and get all the amino acids. This is crazy. Yes, you're absolutely right. You can. It's difficult as a vegan to get the right protein in. But it's possible. It is possible. Well, you could get the right protein from eating grass-fed beef. Yes, yep. You don't need to. I get it. But look, I'm talking to a lot of people here that live God knows where, and sometimes eggs is what they have. So, for example, if you're on hormone deprivation therapy, you need protein. And if you don't have other better sources of protein, and I would recommend other better sources of protein, and that's a podcast for a different day. Well, once again, drgeo.com, where I write about these things all the time. Then if you don't have those options, then eggs is what you have. That's what you have. Okay. Another thing with regards to studying nutrition and the research that's published around it is that they never say they don't exclude a lot of variables. Did the people exercise or didn't? Oh, they did not exercise, and that's not one of the variables that they include. Also, what else are you don't ever eat food in isolation. You ever have just like eggs or eggs with broccoli? I mean, some of you may, I don't know, but most of you don't have eggs by itself. Typically, eggs are eaten with bread, which, as it relates to the cholesterol point, you can consume cholesterol and your cholesterol does not go up by the consumption of cholesterol. Your body cannot really absorb cholesterol too well. Cholesterol that's read in blood work is from what your liver makes. Your liver makes the cholesterol. So this notion that eggs are high in cholesterol, so your cholesterol goes higher, it's not correct. If you want to see very high cholesterol levels, eat a lot of carbs. In fact, most people who eat a lot of carbs have higher cholesterol levels. Okay. And so what do you eat eggs with? You typically have eggs with, bacon or ham. Well, this is a processed food that has shown to be associated with all diseases, including cancer. You eat it with bread. Again, a simple carbohydrate most of the times. So how do you separate the consumption of other foods and other foods you have with eggs to come with a conclusion that eggs are associated to, a higher risk of disease? And you would say, well, why do you consider those observational studies to have some value? Again, if you're looking at a group of 30,000 people or so, and some of these are large numbers, some of those studies, then there is a pattern there. I have to look at the patterns. And these scientists, most studies do their best to exclude as many variables as possible, but it's just impossible to do that. So nutrition science becomes difficult, but when you look at what's in an egg, when you look at these observational studies, you have to do something with it, I think. I don't think it's something to ignore, right? I said, well, you know what? I'm going to still eat my 8 eggs a day because I'm going to, get some muscle. And, I don't really work out or I don't really move my body much other than when I'm in the gym. But then I, sit down for 8-10 hours. Well, then that food is not going to be, that's not a good idea, right? I would not recommend that, right? So you have to look at the research and you have to look at what's in an egg, okay? So the second point here is that eggs are not studied in isolation. So the third point that many of you asked was, all right, so Dr. Geo, I eat egg whites and that's all I'm eating, egg whites, so then that's good, right? Well, the reason why you're eating egg whites is because you heard somewhere that the yolk has cholesterol and cholesterol is bad. The yolk has many other vitamins and nutrients in it. So the yolk is not necessarily a bad thing, though that's the area that has the cholesterol. Once again, you can't really absorb cholesterol well, so it's not a huge issue unless you're trying to just eat protein without so much fat. That's a different story, and that would make sense. The choline, it is in the yolk, so sometimes I would recommend some people to only have 2 to 3 egg yolks a week, and then the rest egg whites, because yes, the choline is in the egg yolk. However, the methionine is in the egg white. And remember, we said that's high in methionine. So when I recommend certain people to eat, take out the egg yolk or only have 2 to 3 a week and eat some egg whites, is because they need protein. They need essential amino acids. And because of muscle, they need to retain muscle. These are guys that are either over 60 or on androgen deprivation therapy for prostate cancer. Yes, once again, there are other methods of consuming essential amino acids. It doesn't have to be eggs, but you have to meet the person and the patient where they're at. And if they say, I love eggs and I hate every other type of protein, so then we have to do eggs, because then it's a risk-reward ratio. In a person of a certain age or after a certain age, 60, say 70, or if they are on androgen deprivation therapy for prostate cancer, they need to retain muscle at all costs. That is the primary goal, because a lot of the side effects from the hormone deprivation therapy comes from the fact that you're depleting the body of muscle because there's less testosterone there. So it depends on the patient and on the situation. Lastly, I'm going to say this.
Thank you for watching the Dr. Geo Prostate Podcast. Take a proactive step and improve your health and vitality with the Prolon Fasting Mimicking Diet FMD, a 5-day plant-based program developed by Dr. Walter Longo, designed to mimic the effects of fasting without the challenges. Prolon helps activate autophagy, reduce inflammation, support weight management, and promote overall longevity, all while nourishing your body. As a special thank you, you can access the Prolon kit for just $148. Use the link below to get started. Empower your journey to better health today.
Hens, depending on how hens are raised, will depend on the nutrient content of the eggs, right? So you have 3 types of, you see it, they market it right on the carton. It says either eggs, it doesn't say anything else but eggs. So eggs that are just eggs are caged eggs under very poor conditions, and they eat a lot of unnatural food, soy and other foods that are unnatural to them. So eggs from hens that are conventionally raised are the worst for you. And all the studies that have looked at egg consumption and the association with and that association with disease or prostate cancer have looked at just eating eggs. These eggs are less nutritious, they have less nutrients in them, and they are likely more toxic. Those are the eggs that I recommend. If you're going to eat eggs, eat no more than 1 a day. Once again, why? Because they may be less expensive, because this is all I have access to, because I don't have access to other sources of protein, or, I happen to love eggs. No more than 1 a day, or let's say just 2 or 3 a week if you're going to have them, in 1 day. Then you have what's called free roaming eggs. So these are hens that are not caged. They're not allowed to walk around a lot. Their space area is not that big, so it's kind of tricky. And they eat some of their natural diet plus conventional food, the same like caged eggs. So they are a little bit better. They do get to walk around and eat some of their natural food, and they are a bit more nutritious. The best eggs are the ones that are pasture-raised. These are free roaming, and they eat mostly their natural diet, if not all their natural diet, which includes things like seeds and grass and insects, right? And when they roam around freely and they eat their natural diet, these eggs are nutrient dense. They do have omega-3 fatty acids, which is protective and anti-inflammatory. They have more carotenoids, which is, when you look at the yolk of a pasture-raised egg, is like this dark, almost like orange color, as opposed to this light yellow color of caged raised hens. Okay, so that's a sign that it's more rich in carotenoids and beta carotene, and it's just richer in nutrients. Does that mean that you should eat, if you have access to free roaming eggs or pastured eggs, that you should eat more than 1 egg a day? And the answer is, I don't know, because there's no research that looks at eating, that I know of anyway, eating these type of eggs have shown in human studies to increase. I can assume that it promotes health. I can assume that there's lower rates of cancer and prostate cancer and disease because they're more nutrient dense. And so then if I eat more of those, then maybe it's protective. I can assume that, but I don't know. I think at the end of the day, and when I first started talking here, we talked about the fact that we just eat too much. So first and foremost, we need to eat less. And even if it's, pastured eggs or high quality foods that are not, you can eat as much broccoli as you want, but calorie dense foods These are your fats, protein, and carbs, or high in carbs. You want to eat, you want to lower, you don't want to eat too much of it. This is why some level of time restricted eating and things like that work well. So how many of these pastured eggs can I have? Once again, what are you having it with? Are you going to have it with bread and bacon? Because bread and bacon are just processed foods. Can you have it with vegetables? And I would say yes. How many? I don't know. But I think safely, if they're pastured raised eggs, you could probably have, more than one a day, particularly if you're in a situation where you're trying to retain muscle. Okay, which all of us should be trying to retain muscle, right? But each circumstance is different. A man over 60, 65, and a man on undergoing androgen deprivation therapy should try to keep as much or even grow as much muscle as possible, because that's going to help them metabolically. And much of the research as it relates to androgen deprivation therapy shows that metabolic dysfunction is probably what's causing many of the illnesses and other conditions in men on ADT. If you want more, if you're the geeky type, if you're a scientist, well, show me the evidence and this and that. I have evidence, but like I said, I have evidence for everything I say. But it's a little tricky as it relates to nutritional science, because it's just by the nature of how this type of research works. And that's what I have for you. So I hope this is helpful. Let me know down in the comment section whether you are on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or listening from YouTube. Let me know. Let me know your thoughts on this. I do look at them. I try my best to answer, but we get a lot of comments, and I thank you for that. And by the way, I want to thank you all. We're about to reach, probably by the time this podcast is published, this episode is published, we're going to reach 30,000 subscribers in YouTube, and many viewers, and many, many thousands around in different podcast platforms. And if you find this podcast useful, I'm asking you to help us out a little bit here. Get the word out. Again, comment, like, share it with your friends, share it with your prostate cancer groups. I bring the goods. I don't hold anything back. And I get the best of the best to come on the show. So help us spread the word out. And once again, drgeo.com, you get in our newsletter, you get just extra stuff depending on what's going on in my mind, and new research and just takeaways that I think is valuable and useful for you. Again, the goal here, empower you to take action, and you're in charge of that body. At the end of the day, they can give you all the treatments they want. And I'm not saying that in a disparaging way. Oftentimes, medical treatments are necessary, but if you do what you need to do and you're empowered, you will do fine. And this is an opportunity, once again, if anybody listening that has prostate cancer or has been just diagnosed or concerned about prostate cancer is an opportunity to thrive, not just survive. It's an opportunity to reevaluate your life and figure out, how do I take this and live even better than before this diagnosis? Don't squander the opportunities that come from such diagnosis. Okay, let's do better, and let's do better together. So this is Dr. Geo on the Dr. Geo Prostate Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Much love to you all, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Dr. Geo Podcast. You can watch all episodes of this podcast and much more by subscribing to my YouTube channel. If you love what you heard today, you can help by leaving a 5-star review of the podcast on Apple and Spotify, as each review helps us reach more men who are serious about improving their urological health and how to function better with age. And for the latest research and actionable takeaways in the world of men's health and integrative urology, sign up for my newsletter at drgeo.com. I'll see you next time.